Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are continuing with the study of Bhagavad-gita. We will just remind ourselves the topics from the previous time, and we will continue. We have a little bit more to cover from 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, and then we will continue with the 8th chapter. So can you please tell me some of the important topics we discussed until now from the 7th chapter?
So Tulsi Prabhu is asking you, just like Hiranyakashipu asked his son Prahlad, what is the best thing that you have learned? He doesn't even ask specifically. He just says, what you have, just tell me one thing that you have learned from the 7th chapter.
One nice thing that you remembered.
There are 4 kinds of pious men.
Okay.
Who begins to render the devotional service unto Lord.
So which were those 4 kinds? Let's try to remember.
Is it Gyani or 30?
Okay. Jigyasu and
Artha, Gyani or 30, Jigyashu. There are 4 kinds of people.
What is this in English?
Okay, Artha means who is eager to get relief from the disaster moment. He is Artha. Or 30, who needs money.
Okay.
Or it could be meaning of life also. Or 30. It's not only money. Jigyashu, who is inquisitive.
Okay.
Asking question. And another one is
Gyani.
Gyani. Gyani is intellectual, who want to acquire knowledge.
Yes, of course. It doesn't mean material knowledge. He wants to know the absolute.
Yeah, spiritual knowledge, definitely.
Not
And other 4 kinds, they never want to go to the devotional service. They are like Mura, Naradhama, Maya Pahrita Jnana. Another one is, I forgot.
Suram.
Ashura. Ashuri Bhava Punna.
Suram Bhavam Ashritaha.
Yeah. So these 4 kinds of things, we studied those in chapter 4:15 and like 16. So those things were there, and the beginning or we studied the strength.
So which are those 4 categories that they never surrender? Mura means
who has higher education even, but this is nothing works for spiritual, and they even deny Lord Krishna.
Mura are the hard workers.
Hard worker. Oh, okay, yeah. They're hard, like an ass.
It's like an ass. They don't really have a higher idea about living their life. They just want to work, get their salary, buy something, and then go to sleep, and like that. They don't have any interest to know something more. Naradama? Who's Naradama?
Naradama is like is it Maya Naradama is
Nara means
like for the lowest in the men, human, like
Why? Because they had the opportunity to meet Krishna in devotional service,
but they didn't use that opportunity.
They didn't use it. They refused the opportunity to practice devotional service. So that's why they are considered even lower than the Mudas, because they knew, and although they had intelligence to take up to Krishna consciousness, they didn't do it. That's why they are considered the lowest of the mankind. And then Maya Pakrita Jnana.
Yeah, they deny like Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Their knowledge is stolen.
Yes, we are saying these are generally very educated personalities, intelligent, but because Maya stole their real knowledge, and they are missing the opportunity to understand that devotional service is the most important thing in life. But they know, maybe they know Sanskrit, they read Bhagavd-gita, they read so many philosophy books, and still they're missing the point. Their knowledge is stolen by illusion, by Maya.
And another one is Ashuri Bhava Svita. So
Yes.
that means they are totally atheist. They even declared we are atheist,
Okay.
something like that.
They don't believe.
And they are like demonic.
Yeah.
All the demonic activities you can find on them.
Nice, very nice. Okay, some other topics. Do you remember something else from the chapter? There were two very important verses in the beginning of the chapter, 7:4 and 7:5. They were describing what?
They're like Bhumi Rapo Nalo
Yes.
Vayu.
Correct.
So those are like eight altogether. We are constitute ourselves, which is earth, water, fire, sky, and air, air and sky. And other than those are the gross body, and subtle is like mind, intelligence, and ego, false ego. So those eight is a continual,
Yes, so
energies, all energies altogether.
these are the material energies of Krishna. And
Yeah,
then
material energies.
7:5 was describing what? Who wants to say? Maybe someone else, just for including everyone in the discussion. 7:5.
Prabhuji, sorry, repeat the question again. What are you asking about Bhumi Rapponalovai? What's you asking?
Yes, I was asking, there is something important said in these two verses, 7:4 and 7:5. Krishna is describing what in 7:4, his material energies, and in 7:5.
Prabhuji, he is explaining superior energy, inferior and superior, that Bhumi Rapponalovai and Kham Buddhi Manorevacha is inferior, and superior is living entity.
Okay. So
That is 7.5.
another energy of his describing. And then in the next two verses,
Next two verses.
7:6 and 7:7, Krishna is describing what?
Prabhuji, he is saying that he is the origin of both.
Okay. So
Both.
Krishna describes his energies, and then he's describing how he is the basis of everything.
And then Prabhuji, 7th is saying Matta Aparatram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Idam Protam Sutramani Ganaiva. That there is nothing superior than him, and everything is resting on him, like how beads are strung on a thread.
Okay, very nice. So in these verses, Krishna is describing, he's giving us knowledge about himself. That is very important, because we cannot understand the absolute with our own endeavor. Unless he desires to reveal himself in front of us, we cannot understand him. So in this part of Bhagavad-gita, Krishna is revealing himself. And then in the next verses, he was describing.
So I just want to ask, what is the technical term for this knowledge? Because if after this seminar, if you don't know that, we too will have to throw our diplomas in the fire. So what's the technical term of what we just described?
The knowledge about God,
Knowledge of the absolute.
knowledge about God, about the living entity, and about material nature.
It is knowledge about the absolute, but what is the term in Sanskrit? There is a specific term that charity.
Starts with S.
Yes.
But it's not Muda.
Samadhi? No, not Samadhi.
Almost. Samban.
Sambandhya.
Bandagyan.
again.
So please
Okay.
remember this. Mahaprabhu explains that these are the three great riches in the Vedas. He says that the Vedas actually teach only three things. Sambandha, that means
Avidya, Prayojana,
Prayojan.
So Sambandha means what?
connection.
Between?
Connection with the
Between
Lord.
living and between Krishna and living entities
Yeah.
Yes, and?
and material energy.
Yes, very good. So then Abhidya means?
The process.
Which is pure devotional service.
Pure devotional service.
And then Prayojana means what?
The goal.
Good.
Very good. Goal, or Prabhupada sometimes translates it as the ultimate necessity. Because you can have so many superficial goals, but this is the goal that is actually your ultimate need. You actually need this in order to be happy. Krishna Prema. Otherwise, you'll never be. Okay, so please remember this. Okay, Sambandha.
Then Prabhuji, what is the Prayojana? If you repeat again, please.
Prayojana is the goal, the ultimate goal. Krishna Prema.
No, okay, Prayojana.
Okay.
Without Prayojana, without Prema, you can receive the Samadhi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tulsi
So,
Prabhuji, just one thing. Can you just adjust little bit camera here? Prabhuji's face is cut just little bit. So, that's correct.
thank you. So, yeah, after Krishna is giving knowledge about himself, about the material and material energy and the living entities, then in the next few verses, he's describing how he's maintaining everything and how he's present in everything.
Yes.
And then we know these famous verses like Rasoham Apsu Kaunteya,
Yeah.
I'm the taste of the water, I am the light of the sun, and so on and so on. Krishna is describing his opulences. He just mentioning them shortly, and then later in 10th chapter, he will describe them much more elaborately. So yeah, these were some of the main topics we discussed. And verse 20, another discussion started about the worship of the demigods. And we are discussing how worship of the demigods is for less intelligent people, Alpa Metasa. Why less intelligent? Because two reasons. First, they don't understand that whatever palace, whatever fruits they get from the demigods, they'll be temporary. First, with the same endeavors, they can get eternal benefit, but they are ready to put all these endeavors just to get some temporary fruit. So that's one problem. And the second is they miss the point that actually these demigods, they have the power to give them blessings because they get their empowerment from Krishna. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Krishna is actually giving all this. But they go to the demigods to pray. And then we had discussion about the impersonal Brahman. And in the famous verse 724, I told you this is very important verse to refute the Mayavadis on the basis of the authority of Bhagavd-gita, because Krishna himself is saying that if you think that Krishna before that was unmanifested and then he became manifested in a material form, such a person is abudaya. Buddhi means intelligent, abudaya means without intelligence. So Krishna himself is saying that this is not true. It is not that before he was impersonal and then he became material person. No, rather he was always spiritual, transcendental personality. So these groups of worshippers were discussed, and basically Krishna is showing that this is not the best way to make spiritual advancement. And now we have another few verses to finish the chapter.
Yes, so I also would like to go a little bit back to the beginning. So what is the continuation? Do you remember we spoke that chapter 6 and 7, they have some connection between themselves. So what was this connection? Why suddenly Krishna, he starts speaking to Arjuna on this topic. It's not arbitrary. There is a flow of logic in Bhagavad-gita. So what prompted him to Krishna to just to say, touch, now you listen. You listen, I will explain.
In the last, actually, he was summarizing, in between all the yogis, one with great faith, who always abide me and always think of me, render service to me. He is the most intimately friends with Krishna, and they are the best even yogi. Is the highest process of all of them. So that means it is kind of solely surrender.
Okay.
So that is from 6th chapter.
Okay.
At the end of the chapter, Krishna explained.
Thank you.
Whatever he did, this is the substance, summary and substance.
Thank you, Prabhu. So Bhaktivinoda Prabhu, you want to add something?
Yeah, Prabhuji, the connection is that at the end, Krishna is saying the yogi nam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmanam. One has to think of me. But if you have to think of him, how do you think of him? And that's why Krishna is showing that, okay, this is how you think when you are tasting the water. You can think of me when you are seeing what you are seeing, this material energy. When you see, then you think how this material energy is, this material world is being created and how this material energy is being run. So who's the creator, like that?
Yes, very
because,
good.
I
because
can
like
add
how
one
we
more
say,
thing,
Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, but Kirtanam comes after when you Shravan, when you hear. So that's why Krishna is giving us an idea to how to think of him always.
Yes, very good.
Prabhuji, can I add one more thing with that?
Yes, please.
Sorry for interruption. So it is a little bit higher study. If you study Srimad Bhagavatam, I think in first skanda, second skanda in beginning, it was saying like Virat Rupa, Krishna's Virat Rupa, also explaining about whole universe, how everything is the part of Krishna's limb of the body. So this is one sense we can think everything is Krishna. So engaging ourselves, like understanding all everything Krishna. I know, I understand what Prabhuji is saying. Like if you think the taste of the water, this is Krishna. If you see the light of the moon, this is Krishna. So also Virat Rupa. Can we explain like that also?
Yes, we can. Although Krishna explains that, Bhagavatam explains that this Virat Rupa is actually material form of the Lord, which is kind of contradictory, but there is such a thing. So it is meant for those who are less intelligent. They have enough intelligence to conceive of higher powers, but they think that the highest reality is the universe. They're called pantheists, pantheists. The universe
Okay.
is not.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And so what happens basically in this 7th chapter, again, to wrap it up quickly, Krishna, because he wants to explain how it is possible to become the greatest yogi, how to become the greatest yogi can be explained by Yogeshvara, by Krishna. So Krishna explains how is this possible, starting from first verse of 7th chapter. And then when he gives this Sambandha-gyan, then naturally there is the reaction. There are different people react differently. So some people like it, some people don't like it. Those who like it, they surrender. Those who don't, they never surrender. These are the 4 categories and four pious and 4 impious souls. There are other people also who are somehow in between. These are the demigod worshippers. They surrender, but not to the Lord. And the personalists. They also surrender, but they have improper, what's the word? Not pona.
The correct way is surrendering, like incorrect way is surrendering.
It's incomplete. They have incomplete,
or I cannot say incorrect, but incomplete way.
reality. Okay. And then Krishna explains that to those who have this contamination, and they even sometimes offensive to Krishna, they think that he has a material body. Those people, Krishna says, I'm never manifest. I'm never manifest to the foolish and intelligent and unintelligent. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency, Yogamaya, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. And this internal potency, Yogamaya, in this case is Brahman, the Brahman effulgence. This is the barrier, the border, which keeps the impersonalists away from the spiritual variety of Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. So they get stuck there. And then Krishna says that he knows everybody, but nobody knows him. Mam tu Vedana Kashchana. So that means that this border acts only in one way. It stops the unqualified people from coming closer to Krishna and disturbing him in his pastimes. But it doesn't act on Krishna. So they cannot perceive him because Yogamaya is there, but Krishna can see all of them perfectly. Yes? No?
Wait, so let me. Effulgence is a border. It's like. So it's effulgence is like a light that covers him from other people from seeing him.
Yeah, it's explained in Ishpanishad as Hiranmayena Patrana. It's dazzling effulgence, like you in a dark room and somebody suddenly splashes light on you, like, and then you are confused because it's too much light. So it's like this.
Huh. Yeah, it's an interesting reference because there was a I would say an old guy I was friend with, and him and I would like talk about some stuff, and he was like telling me how he had like some weird theory about like the sun or something. That there was like a large beam on us,
Oh,
and that they were watching us, and I was like, what? But what he showed me was he turned on the large light, and he put sunglasses behind him, and you couldn't see the sunglasses behind the light. So in the same way,
yeah, good analogy.
the Krishna Loka is behind the effulgence, which is the all-pervasive light.
Mm.
And so what about people, like they say when you die, you go towards a bright light or something like that? I don't know if you heard.
Yeah, first I just want to refer to again to Ishpanishad. This is one of the prayers towards the end of the Ishpanishad.
Mhm.
The speaker, he prays Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasyam Vihitam Mukham
Tatvam Pushan
Tatvam Pushan Apavrinu Satyam Paraya
Dharmaya Drishtaye.
Dharmaya Drishtaye. So the meaning is, please remove this dazzling effulgence so that I can see your beautiful face. That's so Krishna he can use this, he emanates this and he withdraws it. For those who are unqualified, it is full on, and for those who are qualified, he allows them to come close and to see him and to associate.
When I always thought of his effulgence, I thought of it like in pictures where it's like he's in front of a light, it's like there's like a light behind him, kind of.
Yeah, that's
effulgent.
this is when you have ojas in the body, and the body is emanating light, like the saintly persons, because they perform tapasya, and their body is like it has a halo, call this. And what you're referring to, these near-death experiences, anyway, it's something different. It appears that this is how well, I don't know actually. I speculate, but it appears that the soul goes out of the body. So this is the end of the.
Shastra doesn't say anything about that.
No, it says, I'm just not so aware of this.
Okay.
Anyway.
So that gives me more clarification on that.
So then, Krishna says Ichadvesha Samuttena Dvandva Mohena Bharata, O son of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. So what are these dualities and why are we bewildered by them? These are our material tastes and preferences. Since time immemorial, we have stored in our mind so many different varieties of material desires. And every time when you have a material desire, this is icha, I want something. There is the opposite of this desire, dvesha, which means I hate everything that will obstruct the fulfillment of my desire, or unpleasant things for my senses. Anything that is, therefore, it is said that the mind is like the advocate, like the attorney of the senses. So the mind always presents whatever is pleasing for the senses. He presents it to us and say, this is good because it's pleasing, and this is bad because it's unpleasant. Therefore, the role of the spiritual intelligence is to curb the mind and to explain to the mind that, well, maybe this is pleasant, very pleasant right now, but it will bring your ruination. This is precisely your enemy. Your enemy has covered up as your friend, but actually he will kill you. So this is ichadvesha, desire and hate. And when we are too much into these dualities, this will lead to complete bewilderment because we'll just follow our senses. And what's the problem with this? The problem is that when we are too attached to matter, what's the problem of being too attached to matter? Okay, let me ask you. Why we are so much against these material attachments? What's the real problem? But
We will be motichanna. It's some word called our moti means our desires and everything. It's get achanna. Achanna means covered with real things. So kind of we become mad, if you say clearly.
okay. Okay, thank you. Noah, what is
Entanglement.
entanglement?
Yeah.
Good.
Entangling to the material world.
It's entangling to the material world. Okay, somebody else? But
Why this is a problem?
why? Okay.
Why to be mad is a problem? Why to be entangled with material things is a problem? Why? That's the question of
It's not a
Pandey.
constitutional position.
Mhm.
It's like
Well-
putting ghee on the fire.
Okay.
So the fire never be happy when you're putting the butter on that. It
Okay.
just grow and grow.
And what's the problem with that?
With that, it's forget what coming from the intelligence, because intelligence totally lost.
Okay.
And intelligence is the driver of the mind. When your driver already lost the route,
Oh, this
then
is
there will be accident upside down.
Right.
But what is the problem to have bewildered intelligence?
Noah hinted at this. It's different from our constitutional position, which is what?
Servant of the world.
It's different. It's the opposite of our constitutional position, which is servant of Krishna. So the problem with the keen attachment to matter actually is not so much that we break the regulative principles. This is, of course, a problem, but this is not. We have been breaking these principles since time immemorial, many times. So one time more or less, this is not the real problem. The real problem is that we forget Krishna, and this attachment makes us unqualified for devotional service. This is the real problem. And I think we quoted the last time this verse from 11 Canto 11:28. If somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, such a person, being neither very disgusted with nor attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to me. So this is the qualification for starting the process of bhakti. One should not be too attached to matter. That means he's a karmi. He's hopelessly into sense gratification. He can't help himself. And he's neither too disgusted, because that means he's also not qualified for bhakti. He's qualified for jnana. He's one of those dry renunciates So this is the real problem. In other words, we should not take this mundane, moralistic concept that the problem is that we are not nice person. There is nothing good or bad. There is nothing real of substance unless it is connected to Krishna. Even if you're a good person, a nice guy, if this is not connected to Krishna, this is material. And just a matter of time before you become from nice guy, gradually or suddenly you become bad guy. Because the gunas in Bhagavad-gita, it is described that they are always fighting for supremacy, and sooner than later, the sattva guna will become rajas and tamas, etc. So then we have to experience happiness and distress only in connection to Krishna. So what is our happiness and what is our distress? We are happy when we have opportunities for, yes. No,
It's both, it's Krishna.
it's both.
The
It's connected.
happiness and distress comes from Krishna, right?
Yes, they come from, of
Distress-
course, Kishvara Paramakrishna.
That's what I'm saying, like the distress is separation. From
Okay.
Krishna, the happiness is
Okay, yes.
service to Krishna.
So we are happy because we have opportunities for devotional service, and we may experience unhappiness when we are lacking such opportunities. For example, we feel separation from, of course, this is high level of bhakti, but we may feel separation from the deities. We may feel separation from our spiritual master, from the devotees. So this is our happiness and distress. It's supposed to be like this, always in connection to Krishna. I remember once we were in Radhadesh, Pujari, doing Pujari service. And then this was during the Snana Yatra, when we bathed Jagannath and Jagannath became sick. And then for 1 week, Jagannath doesn't give darshan. So I was the good fortune. I was Jagannath's Pujari while he was absent from the altar, and we were worshiping him in his special room where he was enjoying this pastime of being sick. And then we were preparing every day medicine for Jagannath, along with the Boga, Raj Boga offering. There was medicine, and the medicine was orange juice. That was the medicine. He was taking very nice medicine. So there was one very, you can say, very emotional Mataji. She felt separation from the Lord because he was not giving darshan. So one day she couldn't tolerate anymore. So she came up to me and she gave me an envelope with a letter for Lord Jagannath. So I was supposed to open the letter in front of him and give the letter to Jagannath to read the letter. And the letter was, of course, I didn't see the letter. First I offered it. And then after I offered it, I just took a look, I was curious. And we saw this nice, like
Hearts.
and this, oh, dear Jagannath, all this girl stuff, what they do. And was saying, dear Jagannath, we all miss you. When you, nice, very nice. I was really impressed. So this is example how you can feel all these nice spiritual emotions. So I wanted to read to you purport from Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto 27:20, which explains this concept of Icha Dvesha. Sri Prabhupada writes, Bhagavad-gita states, Icha Dvesha Samutana, 2 kinds of propensities arise in the living entity. One propensity is Icha, which means desire to lord it over material nature, or to be as great as the Supreme Lord. Everyone desires to be the greatest personality in this material world. Dvesha means envy. So first you want to be God, Icha, and Dvesha means envy. When one becomes envious of Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one thinks, why should Krishna be all in all? I am as good as Krishna. So these 2 items, desire to be the Lord and envy of the real Lord, envy of the Lord, are the beginning cause of material bondage. As long as the philosopher, salvationist, or voidist has some desire to be the supreme, to be everything, or to deny the existence of God, this cause remains, and there is no question for his liberation. So, okay, so what is Icha? Icha is the desire to be God. And what is Dvesha?
Envy of God.
Where was this? Where was this in?
This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:27-20 purport. What I was just reading. Otherwise, the verse is
Oh, you just
the
had
first
it.
way. Yeah, I'm just reading from
Okay.
Bhagavatam purport. But the verse under discussion is
720.
7:27. Okay, so it's very bad situation, each adventure. So you want to be God, and you hate God, who is the real God, because he somehow he took your place. You think very, very unpleasant type of consciousness. Okay, so this illusion of duality bewilders not only the ordinary fruitive workers, not only the karmis, but also the Gyanis, the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, because due to desire and hate, the Mayavadis are envious of Krishna and want to become one with him. Srila Prabhupada writes in Srila Prabhupada said in lecture from Mumbai, 1974. Small Mudas, we're talking about the Mudas. Small Mudas, they are working hard only to become happy. And the big Muda, he wants to become God. So there are two types of Mudas, small Karmi and the big Muda, the Gyani or the impersonalist. The small Muda wants to become a minister or a president, and the big Mudha wants to become God. The disease is the same. I shall become the most powerful. But that is not possible. Only Krishna is the most powerful. So we better, okay, get rid of this idea. We will never become God and be happy with it. Otherwise, we'll have to always be frustrated. Okay, and then in the verse 28, Krishna explains how both the small and the big Mudas, they can become devotees. Krishna says, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service. I'll do it again. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So that means that the pious persons are recipients of devotees, of the preachers, of the Madhyama devotees' mercy. One shouldn't think that just because of material piety, one becomes qualified for bhakti. No. Material piety cannot make one qualified for bhakti. But what can happen is that because of their piety, these people, they attract the mercy of the pure devotees. And because of the association with the devotees, then they can develop their bhakti, which is dormant in their heart. Otherwise, if we make bhakti dependent on material piety, that means bhakti loses her independent absolute nature, and this is not proper.
Means sadhu sangha.
Sadhu Sangha. Vishwanatha, yes, exactly. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur writes in his commentary to this verse 28 the following: then who is qualified for bhakti? This verse answers: those who have punya karma, those who have destroyed sins partially, develop a predominance of sattva guna and diminished tamoguna. The result of this is a decrease of the illusion, so they become less illusion, these people. Consequently, they become less attached to material sanctification. So they reach this crucial point where they are not too attached and they are not too disgusted. So in between, this is the golden opportunity. And then what happens? then they have a chance to associate with my devotees. Only then they have this chance. Otherwise, they will shun the association of devotees. They will not be attracted. Like so many people are not attracted to associate with the devotees. Majority of the people are not attracted. But there is
Prabhuji,
window.
can I ask one question in that connection?
Okay, you can, but let me finish first. And
Oh,
please
sorry.
remember, I want to make this point, and then you can ask your question. So they have a chance to associate with Krishna's devotees, and then they become completely free of sin by practice of worship. So they start worshiping the Lord, and then they get rid of all their karma by the mercy of the bhakti process, Bhakti Devi. And then being freed completely of illusion, Dvandva Moha, Nirmukta, they become steady, Dhrida Vrata, then they attain Nishta, and then they worship the Lord steadily. This one should not consider that Punya Karma is the cause of any type of bhakti. Material piety is not the cause of bhakti, since the real cause is the association with devotees. So when Krishna says Jananam Punya Karmanam, he means not the material piety, he means Krishna karma, or he means Agyata Sukriti. That's the meaning. Agyata Sukriti means unconscious devotional service. It gradually builds up and accumulates until it reaches this moment when the person can develop Shraddha. Okay, Prabhu, you can ask your question now.
Yes, Prabhuji. So, yogi, they some yogi, they do the meditation and try to develop their samadhi, like it's starting from the pranayam and stuff. So they actually not engage with the devotional service like a devotee. And also some people too much engaged. So you are talking, we can be like detached from the material work, and we cannot be too attached also in the material world. So can I get example like that? It's like one yogi who don't do the daily works, like daily activities for our livelihood, and other way, person who actually lost from Krishna consciousness at all, like totally. So both persons, they are not. This is not a goal as a devotee. Not like leave all the work, go to the meditation, and get the samadhi, and also like too much attached. Both person is not allowed to go to the devotional service, right?
They're both not qualified because they won't be attracted to bhakti. The first one will be attracted to sense gratification.
And the second one is
totally attracted to liberation.
Oh, liberation, yeah.
They will not be attracted to bhakti naturally. So therefore, they're not qualified because they don't have the desire to practice bhakti.
So that means the way you told before, like how a devotee can see our life on our daily activities, connection with Krishna. So that's the best way.
Yes.
Okay.
Perform our duty for Krishna's pleasure, giving him the results, being conscious of him, being aware that we have been engaged in this duty by him.
Okay, thank you.
And use this as opportunity for service. Okay, so then the last two verses, Krishna describes the Yoga Mishra Bhakta. So in verse 16, the Lord listed three types of Sakama devotees, you remember, Arto, Jigyasur, and Artarti. Then he, in verse 29, Krishna describes a fourth type of Sakama devotee. Sakama meaning, who can tell what is Sakama? Sakama Bhakta, Sakama devotee.
Karma means
Sakam, karma, yeah, keep the karma. It's Sakama.
Sakama
And another Niskam, Sakam and Niskam.
means with desire.
With desire, yeah. And Niskam is without desire.
Nishkam is without desire.
Without like without fruitive activities, desire of fruitive activities.
Yes, Krishna describes another Sakama devotee, the Yoga Mishra Bhakta. And Krishna says, the intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. So this is already mixed with desire for liberation. But he's a devotee. They're actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So by the mercy of Krishna, this person's knowledge is not destroyed even at the time of death. By the mercy of Krishna, this Sakama devotee attains his desired goal. So he attains liberation. He can even go to Vaikuntha. But according to Srila Baladevi Vibhushan, he cannot bring Krishna under his control and does not become an object of Krishna's special affection. Okay, he can even go to Vaikuntha or attain liberation, but he is a devotee. Krishna recognizes him, but because he has this desire for liberation, Krishna, he doesn't become specially, Krishna is not showing some special affection for him, like he shows for the Vrajavasis, for Gopis, for Mother Yashoda, etc. So then let us read the summary of this chapter 7. It is in the purport to verse 30. It starts, many subjects have been discussed in this chapter.
So this is the last paragraph from the last purport.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Many subjects have been discussed, right? From here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter. The man is in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and disease, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dhira Brato, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga and transcendental loving service, or transcendental loving service. This is the verdict of all scriptures. The 7th chapter of the Bhagavd-gita is the substance of that conviction.
Thank you. So if you noticed here, Srila Prabhupada describes the full process of bhakti. He explains how who is actually what's the beginning of devotional service. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness. And then he takes gradually pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord, which is Ruchi. And then he attains firm faith, well, maybe this was a different purport I'm referring to. Anyway, here I cannot follow the whole sequence from Shraddha to Prema. Maybe this was just different purport. Anyway, so what is the summary of this chapter? Krishna describes knowledge about himself, and then he describes his different energies, and then he describes the reaction to this knowledge amongst different types of people. So we have the pious and the impious, and then you have people in between. And then at the end of this chapter, verses 29 and 30, the Lord lists 6 terms which will be explained in the next chapter. And these 6 terms are Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya.
All these terms, they can be found in the last two verses. Maybe we can just read the verses and see where are these terms. Jara Marana Mokshaya. This is verse 29. Mam Ashritya Yatantiye Te Brahma. So here it comes. Brahma. Tad Vidu Kritsnam Adiyatmam. So Adiyatma, or the eternal nature of the living entity, is mentioned. Karma, Chakilam, and the karma is mentioned here. So these are different terms, and they are used in a specific way in the Vedic tradition. And by Krishna mentioning them, now he will open the questions in Arjuna. This will be the beginning of the next chapter. So in this verse, we have three terms: Brahma, Adhyatma, and Karma. And then in verse 30, we have Sadibhuta Adidaivamam, Adibhuta and Adidaiva, Sa Adi Yagyam Chaye Vidu, Prayana Kalepi Chamam, Tevidur Yukta Chetasa. So the terms Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya Krishna is using. And now Arjuna again has a question: what is this? And then
What are you talking about?
yes, and then the last it's mentioned Prayana Kale, at the time of death. So this forms another question in the mind of Arjuna about the time of death. So now we'll see all these terms. They will be questioned and explained by Krishna in the next chapter, chapter 8.
Okay, next chapter is called Attaining the Supreme. And it begins by Arjuna inquiring, "O my Lord, or Supreme Person." Okay, so shall we read the first?
Maybe
first
you can say which are the group of verses.
Okay, the groups, the summary of the verses is as follows: verses 1 to 4. Arjuna asks questions regarding all these 6 terms, and Krishna answers. Then Krishna answers briefly, of course, then he continues to answer. And then verses 5 to 8, remembering Krishna at the time of death. Then verses 9 to 13, Yoga Mishra Bhakti, description again of Yoga Mishra Bhakti. And then 14 to 16, pure devotional service. 17 to 22, comparing the material and spiritual worlds, because if you want to perform pure devotional service, you want to be motivated, right? So good motivation is if you compare what will be the result if you perform pure devotional service, you'll go to spiritual world, have spiritual body, and then compare it to the situation here in the material world. So it's a good impetus. And then verses 23 to 28, devotional service, again, glorification of devotional service as the topmost yoga. The devotee is the topmost yogi because simply by his devotional service, he receives the results of all other processes and goes back home, back to Godhead. So it's a good deal. Just by bhakti, you receive the results of all other yoga processes. And on the top of it, you receive something that all these processes will not be able to give you, which is going back home, back to Godhead. So therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavatam that this is the topmost Manisha cha Manishinam. Aisha Buddhimatam Buddhir Manisha cha Manishinam. This is the best deal you can get by offering to the Lord something temporary, which is your body. That's what you do. We offer our body to the Lord, and this body is just a symbol of our envy of Krishna. And it is Sharira Vidya Jal. It is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are networks that lead to death. So we offering this to Krishna, and Krishna says, and my devotees, they receive in return me. Himself. Krishna gives himself to the devotees, and this is the greatest boon. So it is from a Vaishya business person perspective, this is like the best. You give something useless, and then you receive the best thing, Krishna. He becomes your personal friend. And because you become his associate, you also become personal. You also become spiritual. Because so Krishna says this is the best knowledge, and whoever has this verse shining in his heart, he shines in the association of the devotees. So this verse is special. So let us now read verses 1 to 4, the first section.
Arjuna Vacha. Kim tat brahma, kim adiatmam, kim karma purushottama, adi bhutam cha kim proktam, adi daivam kim uchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are the fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? What are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Text 2. Adi yagya katam kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayana kale cha katam geyo si nyatatmabi. Text 2. Who is the Lord of the sacrifice? And how does he live in the body? O Madhusudana, and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Text 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavo Adhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavot Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. And then verse 4. Adibhutam ksharo bhava purusaschadidhaivatam adiyagyo aham evatra dehe deha britam vara. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adiyagya, the Lord of sacrifice.
Okay, first question. What is Brahman? The answer is the indestructible living entity who is originally part and parcel of God is called Brahman. So this is the soul. Okay. Second question.
So we can also remember a little bit these terms, because by reading Vedic texts, the soul will be addressed in this way, Brahman.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is so when the impersonalists realize haven't found Krishna yet, they realize the eternal soul should see effulgence, but because they see themselves, I'm the eternal, all-pervasive being, I am God. This is where they come to that conclusion of I'm God, basically. Okay.
Yeah. So it's true, but it is not complete. They get part of the reality, correct? I'm spirit soul, but partially they're wrong, because they think they are the supreme soul.
Our philosophy is saying we are Brahman, but there is Para-Brahman, the supreme Brahman. So there is difference between Brahman and Para-Brahman.
Yeah.
So from that, Prabhuji, again, Aham Brahmasmi,
Yes, yes.
which is actually not the Para-Brahma. Brahma means soul. I'm the soul, which Prabhupada actually explained all the time. I'm the spirit soul, I'm not the body.
Yes.
So this is actually Aham Brahmasmi is right.
Yes.
I'm Brahma, but I'm not Parabrahma.
Yeah, exactly. Parabrahman is Krishna.
So yeah, you can say this could be the
Second,
concept.
what is the self? In other words, what is this Brahman's constitutional nature? So we are Brahman, but what is this Brahman? So Brahman is, the constitutional nature is called Adhyatma, or the self. And the constitutional nature is Jivara Svarupahoya Krishna Nityadas. We are eternal servants of Krishna. This is our constitutional nature. So there are actually two types of Adhyatma. One is our eternal constitutional nature, and we have also our material nature, which is different. So the term for this material nature is Svabhava. So Baladevi Vibhushan writes in his commentary to third verse number 8.3. I say that Adhyatma refers to the Svabhava. Svabhava is that substance which is intimately connected to the Jiva. So this material nature is very intimately connected to us, although it's not us. It refers to the impressions held in the subtle elements which accompany the Jiva birth after birth. So these are all the memories for self-gratification that we have, and the memories for frustration. We attempted self-gratification, we were frustrated. So each advesha, again, the same thing, desire and hate. Because the impressions are closely related to the Atma, they're called Svabhava. This Svabhava is what I call Adhyatma, that which rules over Atma. So we have the eternal nature of the soul, which is servant of Krishna, and then we have the material acquired nature, which is something like superstition it's superimposition on the spirit soul. It's not its original nature, but because of the false ego, we identify with our material desires and the apparatus, the body by which we attempt to fulfill these material desires. So this is Vabhava. Okay.
So Adhyatma refers to both?
Yes. There are two types of Adhyatma.
Our spiritual nature and also our condition.
Yes, but our conditioned nature is called also Svabhava. So in this way you distinguish between this. Then number 3.
Oh, probably this Svabhava means daily practice, like which is we are habit of, right? This is you mean.
Svabhava?
Yeah.
Svabhava means the conditioned nature on the basis of which you have certain daily duties to perform.
Yeah.
Okay.
Svabhava is the nature, but because you have a certain nature, for example, you are a worker. So now, according to your nature of worker, you have to do certain daily duties. And let's say they won't be reading 10 hours a day. Rather, you'll be engaged in some physical work because this is your Svabhava.
No, okay.
If Svabhava is more intellectual, then you have another duties according to this Svabhava.
Okay, thank you.
And then number 3, what is karma? Tulsi Prabhu just read recently. Karma is the activities that pertain to creation of the new material body. It's called karma. It's here.
Yes, it's text 3. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities. It's called karma or fruitive activities.
So all these actions, all these activities that are material, and they'll lead to creation of new body in the future material body, it's karma. If our activities will not result in new material body, they will result in spiritual body, it's not karma, it's akarma. It's Krishna karma. Okay, and then number 4, what is Adibhuta? This is the changing physical nature. This is the material nature, Adibhuta.
This in verse 4,
Yes.
in the beginning. O best of embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation.
So the physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some time, They produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. These are the 6 changes. So this is Adhyatma. Then, number 5, what is the Adidaiva?
The gigantic universal form of the Lord.
The conception of the universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods and their different planets, is called Adidaiva. So this is the Virat Purusha. Yes.
So this is, what was that religion you said earlier where we were?
Pantheism.
Pantheism. I met one of them yesterday. She
Yep.
actually has a couple of our books. She's gonna come to us. So wait, so is it something you show them? Say the gigantic universal form of the Lord is called?
Yeah.
Or you
Because-
just let them learn about Krishna.
Yes, because-
without comparing?
Yeah, because this is how we present our philosophy. We explain that whatever people think, whatever concept they have, it is already included in the Vaishnava philosophy, in the Vedanta philosophy. But we can explain the proper place of this. For example, pantheism. Yes, it is Virat Purusha, but Krishna is even beyond that. He is, in a sense, identical with his energy, with the universal form, but he is also beyond it. So in this way, we kind of disarm them because they understand. I mean, if they are pious enough, they will understand. Okay, these people, they understand me, they understand what I'm saying, but they have higher knowledge. They know that it's something that I don't know. Instead of just smashing them and saying that they're nonsense and rascals, we try to explain that we have higher knowledge, actually. Not we, Krishna, and we just representing. So Adidaiva is the conception of the universal form, and then the Adiyagya, who is the Lord of the sacrifice, and where in the body does he live? This is Krishna. He's the Yagya Purusha, and he lives in the heart. And then, and because Arjuna is facing this battle, and he's asking also how to remember you at the time of death, because he can die at any moment. And then verse 5 answers the last question for Arjuna. So maybe we can read this and then from 5 till 8.
Verse 5. Antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yatinasti atra samshaha. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Verse 6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sadatat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Verse 7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayar pitamano budir mam evaishasi asamshaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. And verse 8, Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasananyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partha anuchintayan. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Prita, is sure to reach me.
Okay, we'll go shortly over these verses and then we'll have a break. And then when we start again, then can have a little discussion on this. So, how can those engaged in devotional service know Krishna at the time of death? By remembering him, because remembrance of Krishna is devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. The third process is remembering. So a devotee can know Krishna at the time of death, or even before that. And then anyone who quits his body, remembering Shri Krishna, is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord without a doubt. So in Renunciation through Wisdom, Srila Prabhupada explains how the devotee should prepare for death. And then he writes, the activities of the day evoke dreams at night and induce emotions appropriate to those activities. Similarly, the activities performed in one's lifetime flash across one's mind at the moment of death and determine one's next life, because we'll be attracted spontaneously to one of these events, to one of these forms or pastimes. So if we, throughout our whole life, if we have performed only devotional service, then anything that we will see at the end will be connected to Krishna. And then whatever we choose will be Krishna conscious, and we'll go back home to Godhead. But if we, let's say, we are in internet, the feed that you get on YouTube, for example, is the same principle. Whatever you choose, then it comes again to your browser. And then when you open it, then the page has different options. Some are material. Okay, you have lectures of your guru, but then you have also other stuff, because you have not always made the proper choice. So in the same way, at the moment of death, if we have not been choosing properly, then there'll be risk, because there'll be also not Krishna conscious stuff flashing in front of our mind. And then it will be a tough choice, because we will be spontaneously attracted somewhere. So therefore, better don't take this chance and start working. Yes.
What if before coming to Krishna consciousness, you did a lot of
That's okay.
Krishna consciousness?
That's okay. Krishna will get rid of this, but after you become devotee, then you have to be more careful. I mean, extremely careful.
So it's like you must be born again. So like when you let's say you get initiated, your karma's cleared, and then you begin your pure life, no more sin, no more anything else.
Yeah.
Do you remember at the time of death the previous activities?
You will remember. We'll take shelter where we naturally take shelter. If we are naturally attracted to Krishna, we'll take shelter there. If we're naturally attracted to some materialistic activities, therefore Prabhupada gives the example of the parrot. The parrot can also learn Hare Krishna mantra, and he can repeat Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But when Prabhupada says, but when the cat comes and catches him by the neck, and then the parrot says, "Wah!" He doesn't say Hare Krishna at this moment, at the moment of death. So it will be decided according to our where do we actually take shelter in our heart.
And where we'll take shelter, it depends on our attachment. Because if you are very, very, very attached to something, it's unavoidable that you think about this thing at the moment of death. Because now I'm going to be separated. So your mind will be there. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is saying a devotee should mold his life in such a way that he can constantly do something connected with Krishna. Think about Krishna, and then there is a big chance that he will think about Krishna at the moment.
Prabhupada writes, therefore, if one's present activities are directed towards chanting, hearing, and remembering the Supreme Lord's transcendental name, along with descriptions of his beauty, qualities, pastime, associates, and paraphernalia, then one's consciousness at the moment one leaves his body will automatically be attracted to the Lord. Therefore, devotees always remember him in all their activities, in their endeavors for food and safety, and even in the middle of the battlefield while fighting a war. Life being like a battlefield in which one may die at any moment, the devotees remember him at every moment, and he willingly becomes the charioteer of their chariot-like bodies. The activities of their bodies, minds, and words are thus prompted by the Supreme Lord's will. And at the end, when they leave their gross and subtle bodies, they go directly to the spiritual sky. So if we have Krishna conscious life, at the end, we will see only Ratha Yatra, New York, book distribution, Harinam, the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll be just spontaneously choosing one of those. And whatever we choose, we'll go back onto the okay.
Prabhuji, I can ask one question before you go to break.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. It's a suggestion. I had a conversation yesterday with one person about incarnation. He don't believe in incarnation, and he don't care about the belief. So then I gave one example about father. So we believe when mom said, "This is your father," so that is a belief. So he break down my that conception. He said, "Oh, then we can do the DNA test. So where is the belief then? We can do the DNA and we can find this is my father." So then I went another statement. Say you are spirit soul. How you understand? Then is there any belief, or you can do like a DNA test or practical something? So that means when you have consciousness, your body is moving and everything, but that consciousness is not there. You are dead. Your all the system in your body end up. So in that point, there is a belief. There is something in there. Even science still couldn't find it. What is in there actually? So can we give a statement about the belief the way I give? Like in some point we have to believe. Still science is not that much improved, like everything we can do the physical statement or physical proof. Or what else can be a process to believe?
Yes.
Believe of it.
So the science has so many dogmas that they believe in. Like, for example, the Big Bang. There's one British scientist. He said that I don't know whether he was a scientist, but I guess so. Anyway, he said that the modern science is based on the following principle: give us one free miracle, and then we will explain the rest. So the free miracle is the
Believe.
appearance of all the matter and all the energy of the universe, together with all the laws that govern them, out of nothing, in one instance. So this is the Big Bang. So this is a dogma. They believe in it.
No, okay. So that's the belief. Yeah.
It's a belief system. But there's the problem. They usually portray the religious persons as irrational, bewildered sentimentalists. And they themselves they like to think of themselves as scientists, as rational people who believe in tangible, real stuff. They prove everything, they investigate, they experiment. But the opposite is true, actually, because Srila Prabhupada often refers to Krishna consciousness as spiritual science. And materialistic science is actually very dogmatic. Therefore, people write books like scientists, they write books about science set free of dogma. And the process of the free inquiry, which is so vital to the process of scientific research, has been choked by these dogmas. You're not supposed to challenge the scientific dogmas, because you'll be marginalized. There is a whole book by Druta Karma Prabhu, Forbidden Archaeology, where he presents a very impressive amount of proofs how discoveries in the field of archaeology were just swept under the carpet and were ignored because they don't conform to the accepted dogma of archaeology.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you. You can go on break.
I think now,
Let's finish.
10 minutes.
We didn't finish the verse.
okay. Okay, let's finish quickly the verses and then we'll have a break. Although, yeah, it's 11:30. Tulsi is always pushing for. You still there or?
Pushpanjali Mataji.
Okay. Then, in the verse 5, the Lord explained the specific situation of a devotee remembering him at the time of death. And then in verse 6, Krishna presents the general rule. And the general rule is whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. And Srila Prabhupada gives an analogy. As the air carries the scent of the place it blows over, so the soul carries a person's subtle body of mind, intelligence, and false ego, along with his state of consciousness, on to his next birth, and his body is determined accordingly. So the wind blows over a very nice rose garden, and it carries very nice scent. Okay, so according to this scent of the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, it will be a specific rose body. If it's very nice scent, there will be very nice body. if there is not a scent, some stench, some bad odor, then the body will be decided accordingly. So therefore, we should be careful with our thoughts, our actions, our environment, our everything, the food we eat.
Yeah, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is giving the example with Bharat Maharaj, who at the last moment of his life thought about a deer, and then next life he had to take birth as deer.
So then, hearing these instructions about the importance of remembering Krishna at the time of death, one may think, well, since the remembrance of the Lord is the most important thing, everyone should instantly abandon his duties and dedicate his time to hearing and chanting, because you can die at any moment. So if this is the most important thing, let's just go to the forest, to Vrindavan, to Mayapur, everybody immediately, because you may die at any moment. Yeah, and just sit down and chant the holy name, and that's it. So to correct such hasty conclusions, Krishna says, the next verse, that Arjuna should always think of him and at the same time carry on his prescribed duties. The Lord says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, in your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. So even though it may be difficult to remember Krishna while we perform our duties, this is undoubtedly so, it will be even more difficult to remember him at the time of death. Okay, you get this? Maybe it's difficult to remember Krishna while we work, do our business, take care of our family. It's undoubtedly difficult, but it will be more difficult to remember him at the time of death. Therefore, the Lord wants us to practice remembrance throughout our life. We have to practice.
At that time, we still have sense, but the time when we die, we don't have sense.
Exactly. So Krishna continues, and this is the end of this section. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he or Partha is sure to reach me. So Krishna again emphasizes that the constant remembrance leads to remembrance at death. If we try to always remember Krishna, we will probably remember him. Yes.
What are some ways we can remember him, like his name, shape, form, these things?
This question we will leave it for after the break.
Okay.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
So, dear devotees, now it's 11:35. So we are giving you 10 minutes for a break, and then we are giving you another 10 minutes please reread the purport to verses 5, 6, and 7. And from these purports, extract what is the most beneficial and the most practical way to remember Krishna during our life. Srila Prabhupada is really emphasizing it there. So please go through these three purports, and we'll see you again at 11:55.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so dear devotees, who wants to share what are the important points from the purports of Srila Prabhupada, verses 5 to 7?
You want me to start, or Prabhuji, Bhakta-Vatshal Prabhu?
You go, Prabhuji, you go.
Are you sure? Okay. Thank you. So in purport
Okay,
on 5,
let's put the question like that. Which is the easiest and the best way to remember Krishna from the purports of Prabhupada? Noah is saying, chant Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Remember chanting. With the chanting, any circumstances, we can remember Krishna and chant Hare Krishna.
Okay, so that's very, very, very important point, dear devotees. Srila Prabhupada equals remembering Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. Basically, he's saying, if you chant Hare Krishna, that means you remember Krishna. And that's a very interesting point. So, no need to make some special exotic ways to remember Krishna. Just Srila Prabhupada is making it very practical for us. If you just have the habit of constantly chanting Hare Krishna, that means you're remembering Krishna. How many times Srila Prabhupada is mentioning Mahamantra in these purports?
It's 2 times.
You know,
Prabhuji, 5, 6, 7, 3 times.
This is 5 to 7. Okay, 5 to
3
7 times.
times. 3 times.
3 times.
What
Yeah.
you're going to say about that? 3 times Srila Prabhupada is giving the full Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Just
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
2 purports. And in the third one, he is saying one can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. So we could say even 4 times for 3 purports. Oh, that's serious. In the Vedas, it is said if something is repeated again and again and again and again, that means it's very, very important.
Emphasizing.
Yes. So now here we are getting what is really important so that we can remember Krishna, especially at the time of death. Okay, now, dear devotees, tell me important points from these purports, things that you make impression.
Impression is like text 7. Here is a kind of doing our prescribed duty along with chanting. So we're not supposed to stop our prescribed duty and just chanting. We do our prescribed duties, definitely. And definitely thinking connected with Krishna's will and do the chanting.
Is it easy to do these 2 things at the same time? Do our job and think of Krishna at the same time. Is
It's
it?
abhash. We need abhash, habit of.
What is that?
We have to be habit of, like we have to be used to, getting used to,
Yes.
practicing. With the practicing, getting used to, then it will be easy.
It's not so
But
easy.
without practice, suddenly it's not going to be happen.
Yes. Like Bhakta-Vatsala Prabhu or Mataji Jaya Radhe.
They're fully surrendered.
They like you're cooking. When you cook, especially if you cook few things at the same time, your mind should be really there because you can very easily burn something or you just spoil the whole dish. So your mind should be really there. And now Krishna is saying, okay, do your duty, cook, and at the same time, think about me. Is it easy?
Guruji, I was just thinking about this, but I didn't know how to put it. So Guruji, it can be easy if we are doing our work according to our swabhav. Like, see, Arjuna wanted to, in the first chapter and second beginning, he's saying, I want to take sannyas. But Krishna is explaining that you are Kshatriya. So you must do your Kshatriya work and think of me.
Okay.
So according to our varnashram, we have to see. That's why, Prabhuji, the example you are giving, because I'm not a cook, so it's very difficult for me to chant Hare Krishna. I mean, think of Krishna and be a cook. But because I'm an optician, Prabhuji, that is more easier. So like I said, if you are working according to your swabhav, according to your ashram also, then it's a little easier.
Anyway, yeah, it's a very good point that you're making. That if the work is more natural for us, it will be much easier to do it, and then supposedly we will remember Krishna.
Yeah.
But is it natural? Is it going to happen without any endeavors? That's the question.
No. Endeavor, Prabhuji, we have to do.
Okay, that's very important. Like, even if we do job which is very easy for us, if we don't endeavor to remember Krishna, most probably we won't remember him.
Oh, sure, Prabhuji, sure.
And
And
also, Prabhuji, I think Dashavida Nama Aparad. If we keep doing Aparad, it take us back.
yes, that's true.
It's aligned with that.
Pandava, he made a very nice point, and his point was, someone may say, oh, it's so difficult to do my job now because, my mind is really engaged. It's not some physical job. Let's say you are moving bricks from one place to the other, and then your mind is free and you can think about whatever you want. No, my job is very intellectual and I really have to think about this and about that. So I cannot think about Krishna. It's very difficult. But then how much more difficult it will be at the moment of death? Because there is a big chance that our situation at the moment of death, it won't be very nice. The body will make troubles, the mind will
Distract everything.
we'll have so many, hopefully not, but most probably we'll have some attachments, and our mind will be so attached, and he'll be constantly going to this and this. Oh, I couldn't finish this. This is so important. What will happen with this? What about that? And now we should be able to remember Krishna at the same time. So it will be even more difficult. So that's why it doesn't matter what is our situation, there is no excuse. We should find a way to practice now to remember Krishna. And that's why sometimes senior devotees who give classes on Bhagavad-gita, they say that that's why the scene in Bhagavad-gita is so extreme. Like, he's put in some huge battlefield. He has to fight against so many people, and his relatives are there, and his grandfather is there, and his teacher is there, and still he has to perform his duty. No excuse. So in this way, we won't be able to say, oh, my situation is heavier than the situation of Arjuna. So yeah, for him it's okay, but for me, no, I'm exception. No, there is no exceptions. If Arjuna was doing it at these difficult times, that means we also should try to do it. We should remember Krishna. Okay, so some other important points from this purport, something that struck you when you were reading them? Something interesting, something...
There's one more. If in one's present life, this is from 6th verse purport, 330 page. If last 3 lines, last means not the last, but on 330 page. If one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, then it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life.
Okay, nice point. Very important. So actually to live in the mode of goodness will help us to remember Krishna more steadily. Yeah,
Yes.
nice, very nice point. Something else? Someone? Bhagavan Hari Prabhu. Okay. So what we have to remember from this part, the first part of 8th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, the most important thing is that somehow or other we have to mold our life in such a way that we can remember Krishna at the time of death.
Mm.
And if we do that, we will go back to the spiritual world. It's very simple. It's the promise of Krishna. If we remember him at the time of death, he will make sure we go back to the spiritual world. Okay. Pandava Prabhu.
Okay, now verses 9 to 13, they describe the Yoga Mishra Bhakti. So verses 5 to 8, the previous section that we just went through, emphasize the importance of remembering Krishna, right? And then there was a question, how to remember Krishna? And verse 9 answers this question. The Lord continued, one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. So the most important message from this section is that, yes, that Krishna is the person. Krishna is not impersonal or void. But nonetheless, he is present everywhere. So although he's a person, he's also all pervading. People think that if he's all pervading, that he cannot be a person, but this is people's foolish ideas. Krishna can do anything.
So what is the word use indicating that Krishna is a person in this verse? You tell me.
Krishna is person, but he is not.
Or what is the Sanskrit word used to indicate that Krishna is person in the verse?
Purushottama.
Prabhuji, Rupam.
Rupa, yeah. Correct. So Krishna has a form. He is not just some substance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, and then, so this is the most important. Krishna is a person. We should remember that he's a person, but because we are not fully attached to Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, right now, we have to meditate and to try to remember him by using his Brahman feature, that he's all pervading, or his Paramatma feature, that he's in our heart. So we have no other option. We have to start from somewhere. And gradually, when we see that Krishna is everywhere, when we develop our consciousness, we'll develop love for Bhagavan. Okay? Therefore, there are so many descriptions of the universal form. Therefore, Krishna spends so much time describing that I'm the sun, I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm taste of water, I'm this and that, because he knows we are on this level. And in Bhagavatam also. And many descriptions like this. So then the Lord continues by continuing actually from the chapter 7, where he described the Yoga Mishra devotee. You remember the last type of Sakama devotee, the devotee who wants liberation. Now Krishna continues with this topic, and in verses 10 to 13, he outlines the process of Yoga Mishra Bhakti, Ashtanga Yoga, Sat Chakra Yoga. So we already read this. Krishna says,
We didn't.
no? Okay, one who at the time of death fixes his life hair between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are, so this is a devotee of the Lord who is still attached to the process of yoga, but his goal is Bhagavan. He's not an impersonalist. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses. This is pratyahara, and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head, one establishes himself in yoga. So imagine what kind of practice is this. Very dry. Of course, one is supposed to meditate on the form of the Lord, so it's not so dry, but it's very difficult. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So what is important to understand from this section is that no matter what type of process one adopts, the result of this process must be constant remembrance of the Lord. So we're giving choice. You can practice Ashtanga yoga or Karma yoga or
Some mix.
Dhyana Mishra Bhakti, whatever you want to do. But the ultimate result of these practices should be devotional service in the form of constant remembrance of the Lord. So this is the actual goal of yoga. Therefore, techniques like fixing the life air between the eyebrows or practice of celibacy, etc., are useful only to assist to remember Krishna. They don't have value on their own. It's just another material activity if they're not connected to Krishna. Okay, so then
Sometimes devotees they have such kind of questions. Is it okay for a devotee to make yoga? Is it okay for a devotee to, I don't know, drive bike? Is it okay for a devotee to, let's say, eat chocolate? Well, like each one of these can be dealt separately, but the principle behind this is, if you do something, is this thing going to help you to remember Krishna or not? And if it helps you to make spiritual advancement, then it's beneficial for our spiritual life. We can accept it for our spiritual practice. But if not, if rather separates us from the practice of Krishna consciousness, from remembering Krishna, then why doing it? If our goal is to remember Krishna. And also I just want to mention in the verse 10, dear devotees, the second paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, the particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse, because without practice of yoga, whether Shat Chakra yoga or Bhakti yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life. So we need, what is the Sanskrit word used here? Yoga? Yoga balena.
Yeah.
So this is a certain bala, like Balaram.
Power.
Certain power that one gets from his practice of yoga. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, without going through this practice of yoga and getting this power, it will be very, very difficult to remember Krishna at the time of death. That's why one should, one should get his spiritual nourishment, spiritual power from the process that we are following. And then in the next purport, at the end, Srila Prabhupada is saying, therefore, Lord Chaitanya has announced, according to the scriptural injunctions for this age of Kali, that in this age, no process of realizing the Supreme is possible except the chanting of the holy names of the Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Ram, Hare Hare.
So by doing this practice, we are also getting a kind of yoga balana, special purification, special spiritual power. And this will empower us to remember Krishna in the time of death. Yes.
So other forms of yogas could help as a supplement to stay in the goodness and times of the
We have a question. Are there other kinds of yoga will help us to cool down the mind, stay in sattva guna? Yes, that's the question.
remember Krishna, of course.
And to remember Krishna. It depends on the kind of yoga, but generally the authoritative kinds of yoga, their goal is somehow or other to help you to realize that you're not the body, you are the spirit soul.
Mhm.
But now if they will give you connection with the Krishna as a person, that's doubtful. Most won't do that.
Let's say like for me, I have problems in staying in a higher mode of realization. For instance, this morning I took a nap, woke up, and because of that, just I have problems even remembering.
Okay. If we have a problems to stay in the higher modes of nature, can we use the other kinds of yoga to help us? Yes, we can. But again, we should be careful where we want to go, because sometimes we may go very much into sattva guna, so much into sattva guna that we forget what is our goal.
How did you forget when you're in a Hare Krishna temple?
Okay,
You're gonna go there.
Bhakta is asking, how can you forget that if you are in the Hare Krishna temple? Well, in the Hare Krishna temple,
There's
it's
some
okay.
examples.
It's happened before.
Well,
But into so mode of goodness,
I mean-
like I don't need Krishna.
it happens to me all the time. All the time, I all the time forget Krishna, although I'm in Hare Krishna.
But mode of goodness.
Not really.
That's my problem. When I'm in like a lower mode, I just think about random stuff. I don't want to think about random stuff. Like I want to stop my mind from like
Hmm,
the water gets
good.
like the water in the river gets like blurry, milky,
Muddy.
muddy. But when it's calm, you see through it. You can choose, you can choose what you want to think about it. Not trying to control it. So to me, it's like on a day-to-day basis.
Like sometimes we have understanding that to be in the mode of goodness means it's like you open the door and you enter inside and okay, now I'm in the mode of goodness. But it doesn't work exactly like that. It's more like you should learn which situations, which places, which things are in the mode of goodness, and you have to associate with them. And by getting in contact with them, you get these qualities in you, in your consciousness. It's more like that. So let's say if you predominantly live in the time which is in the mode of goodness, this will influence you. If you eat food which is in the mode of goodness, this will influence your consciousness. If you associate with people who are like meek and humble and in goodness, this will give something to you. So it's more like that. It's not like with power, with strength. Now I'm going to be in the mode of goodness. It doesn't exactly work like that. It's more a question of association. Is
So
that okay?
Can you, so. Yes,
By the way, the way you are,
That's later.
it's also not in the mode of goodness right now.
consider.
Prabhuji, association, I think, has different type of form. It could be association with my food habit, association with my devotee association, association with my one I told food habit, association with my movement where I'm going to. So this is not only association with the devotee, right?
Yes, everything Krishna is saying in the 17th, 18th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, that everything in this world can be put in these three modes: goodness,
yeah.
passion, and ignorance. So basically, in whatever situation we are and whatever we are doing, we can do it in one of those three ways. We can do it in a sattvic way, rajasic way, or tamasic way. Let's say you have to sleep. Even the sleeping,
Yeah.
when you are going to sleep, what time you go to sleep? Are you going to eat before that? No. Everything, all our activities, they can be judged according to these three modes. And the more we associate with the mode of goodness, the more our consciousness will be sattvic.
Yeah, that's just not like devotee association with mode. Yeah.
Well, devotee association technically is not just sattvic, it's transcendentally sattvic. Because devotees, they will remind you constantly about Krishna, and this is the best, the top level. This above sattva guna. But the point is that these things are important to keep us in sattva guna. And why we want to be in sattva guna? Because sattva guna will help us to easily remember Krishna. It will be easier to remember Krishna in sattva guna than if our lifestyle is in passion or ignorance. That's the idea. Okay.
So, having explained the practice of Yoga Mishra Bhakti, or how one attached to yoga and liberation can remember him, next Krishna describes pure devotional service, verses 14 to 16. Krishna says, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So this is different from the Yoga Mishra Bhakta, who, because he is attached to yoga, he performs yoga and he tries to remember the Lord. This devotee, he directly engages in devotional service, in bhakti yoga. The pure devotee's only desire is to please Krishna. Therefore, his mind is exclusively fixed on Krishna, and he wards off all desires and thoughts not related to unflinching devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Smartavya satatam Vishnur vismartavya najatuchit. He does not have any selfish desires, and as a result, he enjoys perfect peace. Okay, that's the formula. What was the verse? Anukulena sankalpa pratikulasya varjanam. Anything that is favorable for bhakti, we should accept, and anything that is unfavorable, we should reject. Easy to say. So, but this constant meditation on Krishna attracts Krishna's mercy. So this is the interesting thing. Krishna says, Ananya Cheta, without deviation, and Nitya Yukta, regularly. And then...
So all the yogis, they can remember Krishna, but the pure devotee, he remembers Krishna always, and this puts him in a different situation. He has a different relationship with Krishna.
Yeah.
That's why Krishna is saying, for someone who, just look at verse 14, someone who is Ananya Cheta, without deviation of the mind, Satatam, always, Nityasa, regularly, so in a regular manner. For such a person, Krishna is saying, I am Sulabha. What is the meaning of Sulabha?
Very easy.
Very easy to be achieved.
Unless Durlabha is very hard. Sulabha and Durlabha.
So, for instance, we had another verse in the previous chapter, Bhagavd-gita 7:19. And there Krishna was saying, Bahunam Janmanamante. After many births, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyante. Someone who is Jnani, Jnanavan, he can understand me. And so many births, many births. And here Krishna is saying something else. He's saying, For such a person who is already constantly thinking about me, I'm sulabha. I'm very easy to be attained.
There was some years ago in Mayapur, once we saw quotation from Prabhupada. It was written on the wall somewhere in Mayapur, and the quotation was, Prabhupada said, just try to always to think about Krishna and just make an experiment and see what will be the result.
How happy you will be.
So
Yes.
this is the result. Krishna explains what will be the result. So this constant meditation attracts Krishna's mercy. According to Srila Baladevi Bhushan, in this verse 14, Krishna says, the devotee attains me easily, not encountering the difficulties in karma yoga or ashtanga yoga or other processes. These processes are difficult because Krishna is not personally involved in these processes. So whatever you do, that's it. If you are perfect, fine. But if you do some small mistake, everything is accounted for, and there is a consequence. Every mistake is being punished by the authorities in the universe.
So what are the difficulties of some of those other processes?
Okay, in the process
Like
of
karma yoga.
the process of karma yoga, difficulty is that well, what are difficulties in karma yoga? In karma kanda, the difficulties are, okay, I guess here we take karma yoga and karma kanda as synonymous.
Yeah.
Okay, the karmis, they perform sacrifices if they're pious to please the demigods. But these sacrifices are very elaborate, and even small mistake in the performance will render the whole sacrificial performance useless, or even may have the opposite result. When the brahmanas chant the mantras improperly, then if they say we are invoking the presence of Mangal Devi, the auspicious material energy, but if they say by chance Amangal Devi, then and actually Prabhupada said this. Somebody told him, Prabhupada, they're worshipping Mangal Devi in such and such place in India. And Prabhupada said, yes, they're worshipping Mangal Devi, but Amangal Devi will come instead of Mangal Devi. So, okay, it's very difficult and very rigorous, and every small mistake is punished because you did for yourself. And there are authorities, and they watch you. They are looking for an excuse to
Not to
for a
give you
mistake. They look for a mistake, just like the bureaucracy.
not to pay you.
Yeah, Prabhupada said the job of the bureaucracy is to say no. So there is universal bureaucracy also. They're very strict. Of course, they are not. Anyway, and the Jnana Yoga, the problem there is the process is very dry. And there is no just, because it's a natural action for the soul. The impersonalists, they just study the Vedanta, and it is said that even they just have to turn the pages of Vedanta Sutra. That's all they have to do. Just read, and even if a scorpion comes and bites you while you're turning the pages, the scorpion doesn't exist. It's all Maya anyway. So you look the scorpion.
You have to continue turning the
And you
page.
see how the scorpion comes and bites you, and you just turn the pages of Vedanta Sutra. You eat some dry chapati because it's all Maya. No operant offerings to the Lord because the Lord is also Maya. Kirtan is useless. Well, they do kirtan actually. They sing Hare Krishna, but they sing Hare Krishna in order to realize that they are Krishna. Well, actually there is no Krishna. It's just Nirguna Brahman. So it's unnatural because it denies all the natural propensities of the soul. A relationship with people, love, affection, it's all denied. So can you imagine living like this? The ultimate goal of your practice is to commit spiritual suicide. So it's all difficult, very difficult.
And it's also, it is said also, is dependent on the purity of the heart.
Yes.
Because you cannot live this way. The Jnana Yoga practice and lifestyle requires a certain level of purity of the heart. Otherwise, you cannot live in this way. if your heart is not pure enough, you will be pushed by your material desires towards karma.
No, you don't accept it at all in the process also. Because only the sannyasis can practice jnana
Yes,
and Ashtanga yoga. Only they don't admit grihastha disciples.
the Jnana Yoga.
Therefore, Shankaracharya said, first you take sannyas, then you can talk. Who are you to talk? You are attached householder. You're still attached to having sex with your wife. You cannot talk. First take sannyas, then you are entitled to speak on Vedanta. It's a very rigorous, very difficult, unnatural process. So
And yoga,
in yoga, I mean, even to start yoga, you have to leave home and to go to live in a holy place. And the whole allowed recreation of the yogi, that is recreation for a yogi, and it is going for a walk. That's all.
Sounds amazing.
Bhakta wants to check it out. Live like a
Okay.
yogi.
I came across this first.
So
And then in comparison to this one, the process of bhakti is different because even let's say if you make very big mistake in the process of bhakti yoga, it's not taken seriously. Krishna is not seeing the mistake, rather Krishna is seeing the proper desire of the candidate of bhakti yoga to make spiritual advancement in the right direction. That's why we have this famous verse from Bhagavd-gita. Who is the verse? Can you guess? Famous verse from Bhagavad-gita that speaks even if a devotee do something very, very bad, still Krishna will consider him special.
Sad.
Okay, I'll help you. Apichetsu duracharo bhajante mamana bhak sadur eva samantavya samyak vyavahato hi saha. So even if the devotee do something wrong on his path, he is not disqualified. And what is the atonement that he has to do? What is the thing that he has to do in order to be considered again qualified to practice this path? Nothing different than what he was doing before that. He just have to continue with his spiritual practice. So if we compare the path of bhakti with other paths, path of bhakti is much easy. It's mistakes are not taken seriously. You can be a sannyasi, you can be a brahmachari, you can be a householder, it doesn't matter. Still, you can make spiritual advancement and you can remember Krishna and you can go back to the spiritual world.
Yeah. So, Baladevi Bhushan says, Krishna says in 14 verse, I cannot tolerate separation from him, from this devotee, this pure devotee who constantly meditates on him. I cannot tolerate separation from him, and thus I will show myself to him. This is the famous verse from the Upanishads. Tamam Svam. The Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Lord is not manifested to the persons who are very expert in logic or no, not in logic, in Vedas, in sacrifices, very intelligent. He manifests to those persons to whom he himself chooses to manifest. So, and he chooses to manifest to the pure devotees. I am easy to attain for him, Krishna says, because I destroy his obstacles and I make his sadhana perfect. I perfect his sadhana. So he becomes sadhana siddha by the mercy of Krishna. So then next two verses describe the result attained by practicing pure devotion service. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So what happens to these great souls? They, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they take birth, happily take birth to assist in Krishna's pastimes. The Lord says, when I take my birth, which is full of joy, spiritual and eternal, in the house of Vasudeva, So this is Bhama Vrindavan, where Krishna takes birth to perform his pastimes. So in this universe where Krishna takes birth, then in the same place, his devotees take birth also. My devotees will also take such a birth, and not at other times. That means not caused by karma. Other devotees attain perfection, but those who exclusively think of me, Ananya Cheta, attain the very highest perfection, Paramam Samsiddhi. So the very highest perfection is position in an assistant of my pastimes.
Srila Prabhupada is describing this very nicely in his purport. We can read the purport.
Oops, that's okay.
Can you hear us, dear devotees?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes.
Okay, great. So Bhaktivatsala Prabhu, you want to read the purport? 15.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, 15. Since this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, naturally he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet Krishna Lok Golok Vrindavan does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in Vedic literature as Avyakta and Akshara and Paramagati. In other words, that planet is beyond our material vision, and it is inexplicable, but it is the highest goal, the destination for the Mahatmas. The Mahatmas receive transcendental message from the realized devotees and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They only want Krishna and Krishna's association and nothing else. That is the highest perfection of life. This verse specifically mentions that personalist devotees of the Supreme Lord Krishna, these devotees in Krishna consciousness achieve the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls.
Haribo.
Haribo.
So they want to achieve the association of Krishna in the highest place in Goloka Vrindavan. That's why they are considered the supreme souls, the highest.
Okay, then, so this was which verse? 16.
15, Prabhu.
So then Krishna continues, from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place, but one who attains to my abode, or some Kunti, never takes birth again. So here Krishna emphasizes that every situation in this material world is actually a bad situation. There is no good situation. Of course, the situation amongst the devotees is good situation, but it's not technically part of the material world. It is spiritual situation. But everything material, no matter how exalted, elevated, is actually bad situation. And
do you accept these devotees? That every situation in the material world is more or less.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Without doing it, we can't continue our devotion.
This was very sincere answer. Very sincere.
Even if it is good.
So, yeah, that's very important, because it is said that if the devotee does not have some realization about this, that there is no real happiness in the material world, he won't be enthusiastic to put serious endeavors, in the spiritual development. I mean, think about it. If we think that, okay, maybe this situation is not so good, but I'm sure somewhere in the material world, I will find the ideal situation and I'll be really happy. Then why we have to endeavor seriously for some spiritual practice?
It's all about, Prabhuji, it's all about what I think, our kind of meditation, how we are taking the situation and how we can feel like it could be worse. But from that point, if Krishna's mercy, I'm in that situation, it's much better than could be worse. So that's the way we can keep our enthusiastic and improvement mentality, not feeling bad the worst situation. Worst
Yes.
situation we can make also good situation.
So you are saying we as a devotee should see that material world on its own is not good, but because we have the connection with the spiritual practice, with Krishna consciousness, with Bhakti Yoga, that's why actually it's not so bad. It is
Yeah.
bad,
Yeah,
but
it's better, it's better.
because we know what to do about it, then it's actually not so bad for a devotee.
Yeah, that's called intelligent. The situation comes, but intelligent person handle it wisely. But an unintelligent person get puzzled and they distract and they finally sometimes fall down.
Okay,
But intelligent person do not do that.
great. What about Mataji Jarade? What does she think? Is the material world a place for misery, or there is some hope?
I feel that there's both, because the hope is that Krishna put us here for a reason, right? But yes, there's misery we have to face.
Yeah. And we have to learn some lesson out of it, yeah?
And the misery is, yeah, to learn those lessons.
Yes, actually, if you think about it, we had this desire. We wanted to be here to try to enjoy. And now by trying it, the idea is to get the realization that, okay, I tried, it doesn't really work. So, okay, now let me give my energy to make spiritual advancement. That's the idea of the material world.
Yeah, yesterday one devotee was telling, it's a good things actually, he was telling, I have good situation and bad situation, nothing gives by Krishna. Krishna gives us bhakti. So good or bad, it's come totally based on me. So that's the way he is feeling. Devotion is the best. So don't too much into the good or bad. So that is, he's not actually ISKCON devotee. He don't follow like principles, but his idea was really great. I don't take his situation the way he should be. I pray him to elevate more, but his word is really nice. Like, good or bad come on me. It's not Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay.
Okay, in order to reinforce this point that we just discussed, that there is no good situation in the material world, next, Krishna compares the material and the spiritual worlds. These are verses 17 to 22. So first,
Shall we read them?
I will read them anyway. So verses, okay. So in order to, Krishna does this in order to attain, he wants to accomplish two goals. First, he wants to break our attachment to matter. And he wants to make sure that we are attached to him, because he's not different from the spiritual reality. So first, Krishna describes the material world. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also, okay, you can read this section, 17 to 19.
Okay. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. 18. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifested from the unmanifested state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifested again. 19. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated.
Okay, so this is a material situation. And then verses 20 to 22 describe the spiritual world. Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, this part remains as it is. That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and unfallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns. That is my supreme abode. And then Krishna, okay, this is 2021, and in 22, Krishna describes how to attain this supreme abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the greatest than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, to enter Krishna's supreme abode, or the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, is possible only by bhakti, devotional service, as clearly indicated here by the word bhaktya. No other process can help one attain that supreme abode. Okay. So now, having described the spiritual world and the process for reaching it, the Lord explains the process by which a soul should leave his body in order to attain him in the final 6 verses of this chapter. So now, the process of dying will be described. Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, he said that philosophy is a lesson in dying. So now we will hear Krishna's lesson in dying. Verses 23 to 28. Oh, let's keep this for tomorrow. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Then, so the previous verses that we discussed, what Pandava Prabhu was saying, we have a description of the material world and we have description of the spiritual world, and the idea is to see the difference and to decide which existence will be better. So my question is, why, if we hear one description and the other, why we would choose still the material world and not the spiritual? Why some living entities choose the material world and not the spiritual one?
Lack of faith in the spiritual world.
Lack of faith in the spiritual world. Okay, I read it, but maybe exists, maybe it does not exist.
Too strong faith in the material world.
Or too strong faith. No, I'm here, I'm touching these things. I know, I see my life. I know this will give me some happiness. And what about the other? It's just some words. I don't know. Is it work? If it maybe it's not working. Okay, what else? Why would you choose?
The material.
Yeah.
So in the material, basically, if we go from known to unknown,
Mhm.
it is really easy to proceed on.
Mhm.
And unknown to unknown, actually very hard. Especially spiritual is kind of, I cannot say exactly 100% unknown, but it's still unknown to us a lot of ways. But the material, we know these things. And when we compare with the spiritual, we have some kind of vision, this is spiritual, and we can make a connection easily, known to unknown.
Yes.
So if I don't know anything, as our vision is not like we are Trikaloka, we are very materialistic by our physical construction. So we believe on more on which is we know, which is we can see our senses. So from that point, we can connect easily to material, to spiritual. So that's the better way. If I come to the material world, and I can elevate more easily to the spiritual world.
Okay, yes, but my question was, what are the reasons why?
Lack of faith in Krishna.
Lack of enough faith. What about this one?
We
huh?
don't trust Krishna that he will actually take care of us.
Uh,
Surrender too
Guruji,
much.
laziness also.
Huh? Laziness? Oh,
Laziness.
this is,
Oh, I
yeah.
have to do all this job to go there.
Yeah, not ready to do tapasya.
okay, I see. Yeah, that's
Can we
possible.
say laziness also means we are habituated to something and we don't want to let it go? Because okay, we know here,
Comfort zone.
yeah, it
Inertia.
may not be the best, but at least I know what to expect. And
Actually-
I'm fine with it.
But Prabhuji, you know what? Yeah, these reasons are good, but I still think what Pandava Prabhuji is saying is the main cause that we don't have faith in Krishna. Why? Because even suppose I am lazy, but if I have to go to US Embassy at 4 o'clock for my visa, I will go now. I will get up at 4 o'clock and go because I have full faith now that I will go to US and I'll enjoy there. So I think main it comes back to same thing that we don't have faith in Krishna.
This goes back to
Yes.
not having trust. We don't trust somebody.
Yes.
Therefore,
Yes.
we also don't trust people around us because we don't trust God. And maybe, yeah. Actually,
Right.
it's interesting. Srila Prabhupada said that somebody may say, okay, I agree to suffer. Let me suffer. I want to suffer here, but just let me not die. Okay, I can suffer, but not change my situation. The Prabhupada says, no, this is also not possible. You suffer and then you die and then you go somewhere else.
Right. Prabhuji, with this thing, I just have one very distinct question, practical, maybe because this has happened to my friend, that you are saying that we are saying that because we don't have faith in Krishna, and because we cannot see Krishna, we see Krishna through devotees, right, Prabhuji? But
Yeah.
when devotees misbehave, then people think that if you are like this, then I think I am better than you all. So how to deal with this problem?
So if I understand correctly, your question is how to keep our faith in Krishna despite the misbehavior.
Misbehavior of devotees.
Others.
That's a good question.
And our misbehavior also.
Well, one thing we can say is that fortunately, no, all the devotees are misbehaving. Always there will be bad examples, but always there will be amazing examples to follow.
Sometimes, Prabhuji, people who stay next to you, they misbehave. Then it's philosophically it's easy to say, but practical is like so. Yeah.
Okay, yes, just let's see. Noah wants to say something, and then we'll.
It's a long time he wanted to say something.
Yeah. I had the same problem, right? I would judge devotees because devotees are supposed to be the highest humans on earth, right? So somebody told this to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, the temple and the ashram is like a hospital to cure people's sickness. So there's going to be sick people there. And it's like, if you're in the shower and you judge a person for being dirty, inevitably they're going to become clean eventually. So it's just a matter of seeing for a person in the state that they're in rather than, for their all time. So it's just realizing that everybody's at different phases of their own journey, and then seeing an individual for their specific phase of their journey and to realize they're still becoming clean.
Nice.
Just as we are.
I like very much the point of Noah. And I would add that, have you heard this saying that sometimes devotees, they like to say that the fact that Krishna consciousness movement continue to exist despite the fact how disorganized we are proves that Krishna is here and he's taking care of us. Have you heard this point?
That's a fact, actually, now that you say that.
So in the same way, I would say the fact that we see that there are such amazing devotees around us proves that Krishna is here and he's taking care of his devotees. Yes, we are in the hospital. Yes, all kinds of crazy things are going on around us, but still we have these amazing examples of souls that practice the process for 20, 30, 40 years, and we see how much they are free from ego, from lust, from anger, from being envious to others. And when you see that and you're saying, wow, so that means it's amazing. It's possible. It's possible. So at least to me, this gives me always great faith that, okay, process is working. What do you think, dear?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
So basically that means when we see some some devotee who is showing not so exemplary qualities. One way is we can think the way how Noah said, okay, he's still in the hospital. He needs a little bit more treatment to get there. And then another nice thing to think about is, I'm trying sometimes to think like that. It's not always easy, but wow, he's now my guru. He's showing me what I should not do later.
Want to like this, yeah.
Because let's say now he's in a position of being authority for me. He may be official authority or not official authority, but he's some kind of authority. That's why I'm looking towards him. And I'm seeing something. And then I may start criticize, or I may say, okay, now he's teaching me when I become authority for others, what I should not do. So we can take it in this way also.
Yeah. No, Prabhuji, this is good. I understand. I was just saying that these all answers are applied to people who are a little bit in Krishna consciousness, a little bit Shraddha, a little bit something. But absolutely new people, when they see, this is one of the reasons they say, oh, you are also like this, we are also like this. Better we...
Yes, but it depends also on these new people. Like if they are, that's my opinion, what I saw. If they are mature people in life, speaking material life, not spiritual life, if they are mature people in life, I think they will be able to judge in a very balanced way the society of devotees and what's going on there. Because if they really went through life, they know you cannot expect anywhere utopia. Yes. So by coming, they'll see some good things, they'll see some bad things. But if they are intelligent enough, they will judge and they will say, okay, again, it's not ideal, but I mean, it's much better than the other one. It's much better than the material society. So why not becoming part of this society?
Yeah, positive mentality. They will judge also with the positive mentality, then they will ignore the
Positive, but they don't have illusions.
yeah.
That by going in a spiritual society, okay, now immediately everything should be perfect from the first moment to the end. No, they don't have these illusions because they went through life and they saw it all. And they know all the people, they have some small mistakes or big mistakes in their character. But by judging, they will see, well, I know through what kind of situations I went in my material life. So here's much better. Yeah, again, there is some problems here and there, some conflict, but not so serious as like outside. Like
some of the patients,
yeah,
most of them, they are, we're talking about mental health institutions, right? So some of the patients, they are crazy, but they're most of the time they're like cool, calm. From time to time, some of them just and then it's expected to happen. What do you expect? It's a mental institution.
or someone is staying peaceful, and suddenly he just jumps up and he says, I'm God, and everybody else is jumping on him and starts beating him, and then he's okay, I'm not God. Okay, don't relax.
You seen that before?
Okay, I think it's 1 o'clock.
Okay, dear devotees, thank you very much for your attention. So for tomorrow evening, please read the last section, the last 6 verses from the chapter. We are going to discuss it, and then again we can have some nice interactional discussion. So see you tomorrow at 6:30.
See you afternoon, maybe.
Oh, great.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Maybe. Krishna knows.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai.